Have you ever wondered why Google hates wall of text? Okay, let me break it down for you. Google doesn't only read your text, it analyzes it, compresses it, and does a lot of things to understand the quality of the content. And the interesting thing is that Google can somewhat understand relevance and context, but it cannot differ high quality from low quality content. We've seen numbers of examples where content that every human thinks is low quality is ranking really, really well. So Google can't really see a difference there. They can see relevance and context. That means if you're writing about sports or football, it understands that it's in the context of sports or in a context of a competition or something like that. But high and low quality is not really Google's thing. But then we have a difficulty that's like, how do Google understand what's spam and what's not spam? With spam, I mean trash content with only purpose of ranking quick and not serving a real reader. So how does Google do to separate real content that might have high quality from spam content? Well, there's several things you can do, but one of them is called the compression ratio. I read this nice article in the Search Engine Journal where they linked to an old article about detecting spam on web pages through content analysis. And they looked at 10 different ways of detecting spam through content analysis without reading the text. Of course, in the study, these people who made a study, they looked at 15 to 20,000 pages, read them manually, and separated real content from spam content. And then they used different metrics to try to automatically understand or mathematically understand what content could be spam. And the one ratio or the one calculation that worked the best was called compression ratio or C ratio. In 75% of the cases, when the compression ratio said there's a high probability of spam, it was right. And 75% was much better than the others. Other uh, things they tried out, like looking at how many keywords or how long the headline was or stuff like that, had like 40, 30, 50% detected spam, but this was 75, so that's huge. Okay, let's look in to compression ratio then, see what that is. Compression ratio detects spam in this way. Google crawls a page and reads it, then compresses it and saves the smaller version. This is one of the things Google do where they can detect spam. And compress, it means that you kind of zip a file. In the test, they used zip. You probably heard about zip or you've done it yourself. If you have a big file, you zip it, you pack it down, and it gets smaller. And the interesting thing here is that if you take a page of content, and take the real page size, for example, 1000 kilobyte, and then you compress this with a zip file, and the zip file becomes 100 kilobyte, then you have packed it pretty much. The compression ratio is the original page size, 1000, divided by the compressed zip size, 100. 1000 divided by 100 becomes 10. And a C ratio of 10 equals a very high risk of spam. You can see here in this test they used for all these pages, like 15,000 pages, compression ratio is in the bottom here, and on the right axis, probability of spam. The left axis, how many pages had this ratio. But you can see that if you have a compression ratio of 2, that means you compress 1000 kilobytes to 500. Then you had almost, like 10% risk of spam. Very, very low risk of spam. But if you have a compression ratio of 4, we're talking 60% probability of spam. And 6.5, 7, we're up at 100. This axis or this line is a bit up and down like this because they didn't have that much content to look at. But with bigger numbers, it would be more flat curve like this. So with a C ratio above 4, up to 6, 7, with a very, very high risk of or probability of spam. All right, and with low compression, it means you have 1000 kilobyte page, you compress it to, say, 800. That's like 1.25. Then it's almost 0% probability of spam. Okay, let's dive into this compression and understand why this is important. Take this example. Here is a page written on a Swedish governmental website that gives consumers information about capital insurance. That's a way to invest money in Sweden. And on this page, they don't just have content. They have dotted text here. They have headlines. They have these Q&A sections. They have pictures. They have charts. They have a lot of things that enrich the content. And when you have the full text here, it's 5.8 megabyte in size. When you zip this file, it only becomes 5.6 megabytes. You can zip it so much because they have a lot of pictures. It has a lot of structured data. It has a lot of lists with information. It has the charts and everything. So the compressed file is almost as big as the original file. So 5.8 divided by 5.6 becomes 1.03, a very low risk of spam. Okay, and if I take the same text and I remove all the things that enrich the text, the headlines, the dotted lists, I remove charts, pictures, I remove links to videos, everything. Then I get, now it's still the dotted here, but say that you remove all the dots and that you have a wall of text. This text alone, without all the details in it, is 328 kilobytes. You compress it as much as possible. You can push it down to 17 kilobytes. That's a huge compression, since there's so much repetition, so much just plain text. Okay, and 328 divided by 17, that's 19.3. Okay, that's a very high risk of spam. The compression ratio, the C ratio is huge. Okay, this is a made-up example just to show you and understand how this works. So Google hates wall of text because wall of text is easy to compress, and the compression ratio gets high, which means that Google does not even need to read the content. They can just look at the ratio here and figure out if it's a low or high probability of spam. So if Google uses this tool, and along with other tools, they can probably find like the top 10% worst spam cases, and then look at them in detail if they want to see if it's really spam. All right. So don't write wall of text because it's very easy for Google to classify it as spam. It might be good content, but it's so simply created that Google might classify it as spam, and that's not good for you. Don't stack keywords, because if you have, for example, mutual fund investment as a keyword, and you have that 500 times in the text, mutual fund investment, Google can change that to saying, okay, that's the main keyword, that's the K1. And then you have 500 times the K1. They can change all this text, mutual fund investment, 3 long words, 500 times. They can change it to just writing K500. So you can take hundreds of signs and pack it down to like 4 signs, K500. So no keyword stuffing, no wall of text, and everything that enriches the content and creates variation will decrease the C ratio. You can add images in the text, you can add tables, charts, videos, Q&A sections, structured data. Everything that enriches the text will decrease the C ratio and lower the risk that Google classifies your content as spam. All right, so Google hates wall of text. One of the reasons is that you can compress it so much, so it's a high risk that it gets spam classified. And another thing is, if you can't compress it, it suggests that you have enriched the text with a lot of stuff. You put a lot of energy in the text. You add the charts, the tables, the videos, the Q&As, the structured data. So with a low compression ratio, low risk of spam. That's everything for me. Thank you. Have a nice day.